sort of a unique perspective that you're in so many different markets that and you're willing to go into so many different markets. You have experience in different markets, which makes me curious from your perspective, what markets do you think work the best? Like if somebody approaches you and says, I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to go buy properties and I'm going to turn them over to you to manage, where would you guide them?
That's a really loaded question, but I'll take it if you want. Are we talking current market cycle or are we talking 2021?
Well, I mean, my next question was going to be where do we go in the future? But for now, like as a current snapshot of, and I guess it kind of ties in with future because you don't want to just pick a place that works today that's not going to work tomorrow. But where do you think the best opportunities lie, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, you look at the core states, right? Just the 50 states in general, and you look at the most, urban settings. Those are, local municipalities that are going to have heavy regulation coming within the next 24, 36, 48 months. You're seeing it in Atlanta, you're seeing it in Dallas, and, who knows where it's going to be moving forward. I know Indiana's untouchable, Kirby, so you're pretty safe over there. But
that's right. Leave us alone.
There are, yeah, right. But there are current states that don't have reigning legislation saying that short-term rentals are not going to be affected. So with that said, I think the best markets moving forward are going to be those urban core populations in the secondary and tertiary markets of a state. So, looking at Alabama, right? You have Huntsville, which is, seen as this huge growth market where everyone wants to invest and get into. Same with Mobile. But, what's to say that Birmingham shouldn't be passed over? What's to say that Montgomery should be a place to invest, right? Those are pretty, urban focused in areas where we're able to, tap into that growth potential. And I think, Kirby, you were talking about this in a recent, podcast or a video. Your utilitarian markets are really where you want to have the focus in moving forward. I think with bookings and, what we've seen across our portfolio, we're still getting a steady amount of bookings in markets such as Little Rock, and Birmingham, and Memphis, but we're having a bit of, dry powder, if you will, or waiting for that season to come for spring break and things in markets like Destin, Panama City. So it really just depends. If you want steady rentals with, bookings over time, which are going to be a little bit less for the ADR, the average daily rate, then, stick to those secondary, tertiary, metropolitan areas. If you want more of the, large income, high growth, but you're going to have the seasonality, then focus on the vacation markets. That's what I tell people, any which way. So,
yeah. I would add that Hersh is exactly right about the urban markets, and urban markets make it way easier to manage rentals. I mean, like in Nashville, I can snap my fingers. There's a handyman, there's a cleaner, I got 80 different HVAC guys I can call today and make something happen. Right. That makes life a lot easier, especially if you decide to self-manage as your first one, which we should circle back on this one, but you won't do that for very long. As soon as you get a portfolio, you'll find you got to start outsourcing yourself. But the other thing is, you can still do the vacation markets. If you do that, make sure you go into the ones that historically have been that way forever so that you don't really have to worry about the regulations, right? In Vegas, you might have some problems, but because, there's a bajillion hotels, but, Gatlinburg, Orlando, Destin, you're not going to have those problems because they're historically short-term rental markets and they weren't called Airbnb, but they were all short-term rentals, and they're going to continue to be so for such a long time. That those markets, I still think there's a lot of opportunity. You might have to look a lot harder for deals right now, or you might have to burr your way into a good deal in those markets right now, but it's still doable.
Yeah. And what
one thing I will add
go ahead.
Is don't be disincentivized by what we're saying if you have an extremely unique opportunity to do something. And I think, Airbnb specifically focuses on the experience vice the actual property itself. So if you go into Airbnb and you just say, I don't really care about my travel dates, I don't care where I want to go, it's going to bring up all these unique stays. I mean, I always get this one in San Diego that's like $5,000 a night and it's booked out until like 2029. I don't even know how long it can be booked out for, but it's wild. And so, if you have a value proposition where you can look for those types of things, for example, we know a potential client who has, these tree houses in the middle of Texas and, the wine capital of Texas. And, there's like these tree houses that they've started and they're booked out for quite some time. And it's, occupied for 75-80% of the year. So if you can do that unique stay or that unique experience, don't be disincentivized by what we're saying. Just like keep that in mind as long as you know the growth metrics are there. I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's such a great point on that. Like, people have made houses out of potatoes and have booked them solidly. So yeah, it's funny because I didn't get this, like kind of like you talked about, Charlie, where the as a long-term renter, three bedrooms, a three-bedroom, a three-bedroom, you're charging the exact same amount. It doesn't matter if you put in quartz or granite or whatever, any amenities. It is what it is. And so it's a commodity. And so when I started doing short-term rentals, I kind of had that mindset and didn't understand what was driving value. And my wife had to kind of beat that into me as the designer in the relationship. And, she's like, let's just pay a little bit more for this mural on the wall or this hanging chair in the middle of the living room or something like just like unique that's different from everything else. And marketing, you get rewarded so much for the way you market a property. The same tent or the same treehouse might make half, one might make half of what the other one makes because it's just terrible pictures and doesn't have the same amenities and doesn't have, the right description, and all that stuff makes a huge difference. So it's cool to hear that you guys understand that, and that you can, because that leads to maximizing revenue for your clients, obviously. So that's awesome. And what, you talked about like what leads to bigger returns, or what metrics do you guys use to determine this is a deal or it's not a deal? Is it just like cash flow? Is it cash on cash return? Is it ROI? What do you guys look at?
For my personal investment portfolio, I mean, I'm looking at cash on cash as well as kind of the long-term ROI, including debt pay down and, the intangibles, of course, like owning that piece of real estate, even if it breaks even, is better than owning a break-even other asset, because this thing's still got tax benefits and principal pay down and appreciation, not counting the last 2 years, that counteracts inflation, right? So for me, real estate's the best investment vehicle. And if I get, 10 to 20% cash flow on top of that, I'm pretty happy, right? Now, 10% cash flow, if I gotta manage it myself, probably not. 10% cash flow, if it's got management in place, good to go, right? So that's kind of my personal look at it. From a Serenity Stays perspective, we kind of look at, hey, here's what your income's going to be. If you need some help with cost estimates, if we have familiarity in that market or we know somebody, we'll help with that. But we might not have that exact info, depending on the market.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, because I think that's helpful for clients, because you don't want to, if a client's going to get into a situation where they're losing money or they're not going into it eyes wide open, it's not going to help anyone. So it's good that you guys are investors first to understand how the numbers work, and can relay some of that information to your clients. So how do you guys divide your responsibility? Like, what was the incentive to partner on this business, and how do you divide up your responsibilities within the business? And do you have any advice to others who might be thinking about partnering in real estate, just in general, not necessarily a property management company?
I can take that one, Charlie. So I think the partnership aspect is something that I've definitely leaned heavily upon in my personal real estate career. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, my first asset that I acquired was a 16-unit apartment building in, West Indianapolis, right? So everyone's probably thinking, okay, how did he do that for his first one? Well, the key was partnerships, right? It's just creating extremely strong relationships with individuals that you develop a level of mutual trust with. And, I don't necessarily like when people say a partnership is like a marriage. I think that they're, two very distinct things, but I will say that, a partnership is something where you need to have an instantiated level of trust, but you also need to have the protections in place in case you need to remove yourself from that partnership at any time. That's something that everyone always thinks of. Oh yeah, this is really great. You have $100,000. I have $100,000. We both have like real estate experience in some capacity. Let's partner. Let's buy this project and let's see how things go. Okay, everything goes well until something breaks or something is not working properly. Then is when people need to start reacting under pressure, and that's when the true colors of individual come out. So I would just say, you know, when you talk to people at a conference, or you talk to people on a Facebook group or a chat, or you get onto a call, you know, meet with them multiple times. Don't just do the one-off. Okay, yeah, let's partner here. Let's try to do something. Don't even entertain that thought until you really have solidified a basis of, you know, where this individual comes from. Do their values align with yours? What's their 5-year goal? What's your 5-year goal? Are they in the same spot of life as you are? And if not, can you guys co-align and understand each other's vision, understand each other's perspective? That's what I think comes down fundamentally to how real estate should work. And then again, we can get into active and passive, but you know, that's not the purpose of really what we're discussing today. In terms of the you know, company itself and Serenity Stays, we really identified a couple different buckets that we needed to focus on for this company. And, you know, operations are a large part of it. And I think each partner has their hands in operations in somewhat capacity. I mean, Charlie's the brains of the operation, but everyone has some way of contributing. You know, we also have lead generation and partnerships, which is what I take care of on our side. You know, we have legal, we have tax, and then we have the overall visionary and structure that is implemented with, I guess, the jack of all trades in Cliff, you know, who just kind of puts his hands in everything and gets the execution. He's like the executioner. He basically gets it done. So with all that said, everyone has their understanding and responsibilities, but being in a growth startup and bootstrapping, if you will, just because we don't have like VC dollars coming in where we can hire on a team of 16 to 20 individuals, everyone has a responsibility to understand all parts of the business as best they can. And, you know, as we start to grow, then it'll become a little bit more divided, as it has become over the past couple of months, but everyone still has a mutual understanding and respect for what everyone's doing.